Okay. All right. At this table, take you. I would say Amazon's delivery tracking system. You like? Yes. Okay. And why do you like it? It's efficient and it makes the whole seller-customer relation a lot more exact. Okay. Maybe it's not that universal. Okay. That's my novel process. Okay. Okay. And what do you dislike? Is there a service you dislike? Or are you a happy person and you like everything? Oh, wait. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Maybe do you have a service that you dislike?
I bought once a product from TV.
Okay.
And I gave my number.
Okay.
And they called me all the time for promotion.
Ah, yes. Bad idea. Bad idea. Okay. So you were being harassed all the time. Okay. Excellent. From this table. Yes.
Free Wi-Fi.
Free Wi-Fi. Okay. Why do you like it?
When you go to a cafeteria or a theater or enterprises that are working with this service, you have access to free Wi-Fi.
So it's convenient. Okay. And it works. And anything you dislike? You haven't found anything? It's a very good sign. The Greek economy must be doing very well. What do you do? Online advertising? You don't like? Okay. And why do you dislike it?
Mainly it is obligatory.
Ah, okay.
I can pass it so I can.
Okay. Okay. Now, this is just a very quick exercise, and unfortunately, I cannot take everybody's kind of likes and dislikes, but it's a very good exercise. So, one of the first things you should do if you're working with an SME or you're an SME yourself is think about what you like and dislike. Why would you want to treat your customers differently from what you like or dislike? And it's really worth thinking about what makes the difference between good service and bad service. By chance, I have the Amazon picture here. It's not by chance because whenever I give these workshops around the world, Amazon's always one of the good examples. Because they think about this a lot, they work on this a lot, they pay attention to the details. So, what are some of the things which make the success of a service? First of all, they have to be relevant and effective. For example, one of the problems with online advertising is that it's often not offering something which you are interested in. If it was only offering things that you were interested in, maybe it would be less of a problem. It has to be consistent. So if you go to your morning coffee place and one day they give you fantastic service, the next day they give you terrible service, it will be very complicated. Because what happens is we have certain expectations. If we expect service to be terrible, then we lower our expectations and we say, okay, well, it's terrible, but that's just the way it is usually. We have fantastic service one day, and we really expect it the next day to be fantastic as well. Easy to use. It was already mentioned when we talked about the Internet of Things. The next one is a little bit complicated. I mean, it's a little bit design speak, but we all have expectations about the way something should work. So, for example, if you want to open a door and you see a handle on the door, you expect to have to move the handle to open the door. If all of a sudden you have to not move it down, but you have to push it, even though it looks like a handle which you have to take, you have a problem. And it's the same thing with services. People have an expectation of how things are supposed to work, so try and match that. Value for money, whether it's free, that's the ultimate value for money, or whether you ask for a fair price. The next one is also important, and not something that you think about a lot, is contextual. What does it mean? It means that there's a huge difference between the service that you offer to somebody who is in a crisis. So for example, if you are in an insurance company and your client just had an accident, that client is stressed and is panicking, you should be offering a service which is good for that client at that moment. And that's not the same as when the client is coming to your office, he has lots of time, sit down with you, give him advice, etc., etc. So you always have to think about that customer. What are they, in what state of mind are they? Are they ready to receive my services? Are they anxious? Are they relaxed? Depends on the context. The next one is also from the IT context. People want to be able to get out of things. So for example, I was flying on Ryanair yesterday. I booked additional parking because I had forgotten to mention that I needed some parking. I booked the parking, went all the way through, gave my credit card details, etc., etc. And then all of a sudden I did not receive the voucher. There was a very good reason why I did not receive the voucher, but I could not contact anybody at Ryanair. They had a telephone number which was somewhere in the UK. I wasn't told. Okay, I called the UK and I came onto a number, and the number said, "We are open during office hours, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday," which is terrible service. I mean, it's terrible service for when you are offering, when you're flying clients all over the world all days, then you should be able to service them every single day. And last but not least, remember that I said we were going to talk about the brain, but also the heart. It's very important that you appeal to emotions. When you go through life, when you leave the workshop today, and you look at the services you receive, try and see how much of your reaction is emotional and how much of your reaction is rational. I was talking about the hairdresser earlier. I don't go to the hairdresser. Very easy, but some people need to go to the hairdresser. And the hairdresser, you go. And the hairdresser, well, at the end of the day, what does a hairdresser do? They cut and they make curls and whatever, and they wash your hair. It's the basic functions are pretty much the same everywhere. And the reason why you like one hairdresser more than another probably has a lot to do with emotional aspects. And so don't forget the emotional aspects. Okay, what are we going to do in this workshop? I'm going to give you some theory. I'm going to give you a case to work on. We're going to work on this together. And I'm also going to give you some best practices. It's also called next practices. Why? Because there's a big discussion on right now that you should not really be using best practices, because best practices is only the best things that people are doing today, and you should really be doing what's good tomorrow. So you should be doing next practices rather than best practices. You will see that in this workshop we're going to keep things simple. You don't have any sophisticated digital devices, you don't have, it's not interactive learning, it's all you have is paper, some post-its, some markers, that's all you have. And we have done this on purpose. We have done this on purpose. The reason is that you want to be able to do this with any SME, anywhere. And I have done this with very small startup companies in very small rooms, with only pen and paper, and you can still apply these techniques. Okay, so maybe what is service design? First explain. what it is we're going to be talking about. The definition, generally accepted, is that it's designed for experiences that engage people. So it's not about just thinking, but it's also about feeling, it's about doing, through different touch points. I don't know whether you're familiar with what touch points are, but for example, if you have a phone, you have a smartphone. For many services today, the smartphone will be one of the touch points. Free Wi-Fi, one of the touch points, one of the ways you can enroll in free Wi-Fi will be through your smartphone. But you can probably also do it through your computer, and maybe you can do it through a branch or through an office, etc. Design, it's a very long slide, a lot of text. You will get the presentation, and I think you will get it electronically, so don't worry about writing too many things down. But the big mistake people make sometimes about design is to think that it's only about beautiful things. Also designing a nice scarf like you're wearing, that could be design. And so many people think design is about designing pretty things. But design is also about designing things that work, that function, that do what people want it to do. So for example, I have a remote control to move the slides. It can be pretty or not. We can have a long discussion about this. But the most important thing is that when I press this button, the slide moves. So that's a very important aspect. And you see many things in this world, and I'm sure in Greece it's the same, that are very pretty, but are totally useless. Somebody was talking about Alpha Bank. The banks have been spending a lot of money making beautiful branches, but the service is not necessarily better. So maybe they should have, it would have been better to spend a little bit more money on improving the service and less on making the branches pretty. There are many levels of design. Don't worry about this. I mean, my ambition is not to turn you into designers in a day. That's not going to work. But just so that you understand, a lot of the people think that design is all about, does it look attractive? Does it look pretty? And they say, beautiful design. No, design is also about, does it work? And does it fit within the strategy? So if you are going to work with an SME, the SME may be an old grandmother who makes fantastic jam, fig jam. And so if you are going to design something for her, you need to design something that works for her. If she wants to start a company that will sell fig jam all over the world, you have to make something that will work for her. Okay? What's very important in service design is it has to be desirable, so people should want it. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to sell it. Even if you are a public service still needs to be accepted by the citizens. So it needs to be desirable. It needs to be viable. So behind it, you need a business model that works. And it needs to be feasible on the technology side. A lot of the mistakes that people make today is to focus on the technology. They say, if we have fantastic technology, we will be able to do something for our clients. It's not true. It's not true because most of the technology today is available. When Apple makes a new iPhone, they buy most of the technology. Most of the technology they buy. They buy companies that have that technology. So their focus is not so much on the technology, they focus on what will people want. And then they try to make that with the available technology. Okay. Why service design? By the way, the most important question that you can ask in design is why. If you remember only one thing about today, I make it very easy for you. If you remember only one thing, it's to ask the question, why? Why? Okay, that's a very important question. So one of the things that we are noticing, and I think it's also true in Greece, is you can keep working harder and harder and harder and harder, doing things the way you did them yesterday, but only doing them twice as much, and it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference. So there is a need to rethink the way you are doing things. And you need to do this in a smart way. This is an example I like to use. I don't know whether you have an opinion on the subject, so you see a yellow convertible Porsche, I think, on the left-hand side. You see one of those big SUV Volvos on the right-hand side. And I ask you the question, and I'm sure you know this, you look like a man who knows these kind of things. Which one is safe?
Well, I guess it is SUV.
The SUV, huh? Big, huh? Oh, okay, okay. Does anybody have a different opinion? Yes. You have a different opinion? Okay. And which one do you think is safer? Because you have one at home?
I like that.
You like it. And so why do you think it's safer?
Because the brakes is better.
A bit louder, please.
The brakes are better.
Everything stronger. Everything not passive is better.
Everything not passive is better. This man has been reading. So, in the USA, they have something called the National Highway Safety Authority, which is the supreme body kind of looking at road safety. And they did an extensive test with all kinds of cars, and they tested them on safety. And they found that out of these two, the safest car is the Porsche. And precisely because of the reason that you mentioned. We all have been taught that safety means you need a big car, you need big bumpers, you need a lot of steel, etc. That way you are protected. But in safety, the most important thing is to avoid the accident. Not what happens when you are in the accident, but to avoid the accident. That's the way you can take away 95% of the risk. So we are all focused because we have seen advertisements, commercials about cars crashing into walls and crash test dummies going back and forth and everything exploding, etc., etc. We think, you need a big car. While in fact what you need is you need a car which is very agile and you can quickly avoid the incident or you can brake. So it's really a question of how you ask the question. So if you look at the cars in before 2000, there was a big race to make the bumper bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't know if you remember these older cars, but they had bigger and bigger bumpers and then after the year 2000, the car makers said, no, we don't need to worry mostly about passive safety, but we need to worry about active safety. How can we avoid the accident? And that's what you see in cars today. They are full of sensors, they are full of all kinds of things which allow you to avoid the accident. Now, why do I give this example? This is not a commercial for Porsche. There's a very good reason to give this example, is to show you that if you look at a problem in a different way, you will come up with different solutions. And that's basically what you need to try and do. Say, what is the real problem we're trying to avoid? What do we need to solve? And then what is the best solution? And in the case of most services, there is only one boss, and it's not the boss in the company, but it's the customer, it's the user. And that you should really never forget, because they have options. And these days they have more and more options. If you don't like your local bookstore, you go on Amazon and you buy whatever you like. If you don't like your local hi-fi store, you have many different options. So there is pressure from the users. They are becoming more critical, they have increasing choice. There's pressure on value for money. I don't have to explain that to you. When the economic situation is difficult, you become even more sensitive to price. They are active participants in the solution provided. This is also something that we tend to forget. When you offer a service, for example, you have a restaurant. If you have a restaurant and the customer comes in and he is very happy, he's delighted because he has just won a contract or he has received his degree, he's happy, everything is going well, it will be much easier to serve that customer than if the customer is grumpy, he's in a bad mood, etc., etc. So we as customers, we determine the quality of the service. We are participants in the service. And they have an increasing number of access channels. But there's also pressure from the supply side. Companies have to become more and more efficient. It's about the bottom line. It's about making money. And so fitting the solution to the market, to the customer, is a big challenge on that side as well. So these are reasons why organizations are looking at service design and service design. How do we do it?